Welcome back to another episode of Red Dot Comics Den. I'm your host Viancy, and I'm here with my co-host Linging and our two very special guests for today, Keyade and Tinybirdfarts.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, we have a very elaborate setup today. This is basically the stuff that they work on. They are the creative duo behind very popular Chinese fantasy webcomic To Hell With You. It has amassed more than 1.1 million views on Webtoon right now, and it has more than 36,000 subscribers and also an amazing 9.7% rating, which is really, really great. And then of course, other than the webcomic, they also work on things like merch for fandoms like Genshin Impact and like Heaven's Official Blessing, Tianguan Sivu. Yeah, I have bought some of those before.
Thank you.
Probably back when you did not know who I am, and then I was like,
it's okay, we know now.
Yeah, we don't know, yes.
I think I'm very happy today to chat with you guys about that and talk to you all about your experiences with working on the webcomic. Maybe talk a bit more about how y'all two met and how everything got started.
Both of us have been boothing at conventions for a really long time, maybe about a decade, ever since our uni time, so you can deduce how old we are from that. So there were a few times where coincidentally we boothed beside each other. And we actually have a mutual friend who plays the same sports as me. So there was this one day when I was working in my previous company, I was asked to hire an intern for the team. Through this mutual friend who plays sports with us, she introduced me to Esther. And then we onboarded Esther as the intern. I was working at Ubisoft before this. I was working in communications, and we were looking for somebody who was good at art, design, film, writing. Esther was also looking for something like an internship or an attachment.
Yeah, I got into uni. I just got into uni at that point of time, so it was actually very difficult for me to go into internship at that place without taking a gap year. So in the end, I chose to take a gap year from my uni to go for the internship.
I mean, so you did get to work at Ubisoft with some.
I mean, I was just like, it's just like everybody gets to go to. Okay, not everybody gets to go to uni. It's an opportunity that I'm grateful for. But if I want to go to the game industry, I think the work experience was more valuable for me at that point of time.
It's
so
true.
I just like, okay, I'm just going to take a gap year, just go for internship at Ubisoft.
So we actually worked together on the same team in Ubisoft. I think the total time was maybe about a year or so that we worked together. We have a lot of similarities. We actually worked together for around a year in Ubisoft on the same team. So we worked on the same projects and we appreciate each other's workflow. So we found each other very efficient, very responsible. And so from then
same
onwards,
work ethic.
yeah, same work ethic. I thought that Esther was really driven. And at that time when I was working with Ubisoft, I had already sort of mentored a lot of newcomers and interns. And I really think that Esther was the very best hire that I've ever hired.
So sweet. Have you heard that before? Is this the first time you're
I
hearing
think this is the
today?
first time I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely boss. Like intern
I wasn't the
relationship.
boss. I wasn't the boss, but because the bosses were very busy,
manager.
so they just got like a
Intern
more
relationship.
senior member of the team to work with the less senior member of the team. But Esther was definitely the most efficient, the most reliable person I've ever worked with, even in my professional career before we started working on this.
That's actually really great. It's not easy to come by in a work relationship that you really find someone that has the same values and that you really respect in that sense. That's great. Yeah.
Is that where y'all realized that you were each other's kind of like creative soulmates?
I think we had to figure out like some of the things that we had in common, like for example, our overlapping interests. Because I think everybody can have a different kind of partnership with someone, but you have to find your overlapping interest in order to see like what can make work for the other party or how you can strengthen the other party's ability. So for example, if she is good at coloring, how can I like upgrade my skills to supplement that for her?
So what kind of mutual interests did y'all find like between each other?
Hot man.
Ancient Chinese
That's
man.
ancient Chinese man.
Man. And also this wish to be a little bit different from everybody else and do what we want for a living. There's actually a very interesting story about how this started. So before we actually quit our jobs to work on something like this full time together, right? 2 or 3 years before that, we actually had a really, really serious conversation like,
Like
I
you
really want to
sat
do this with my
down
life.
and
Yeah, then we actually like
Over
went
drinks.
through even things like timeline, how long can we afford to spend on this risk, how much money do each of us have to make a month by the end of the venture. It was like a very, very detailed
like a
and serious
business meeting kind of.
And then at that time, we both thought, oh, nobody else does this in Singapore. It's so risky. It's not just hipster, it's bizarre for somebody to do something like this. We actually didn't go ahead with it, but it was still at the back of our minds. But then around the COVID period, towards the end of the lockdown period, we somehow brought this topic back up again. We decided to, okay, let's work on it only over the weekends and whatever. And then slowly and slowly it became such a big commitment and such a big story, and we saw so much potential in it that we thought, we had this like crazy thought, what if we actually quit our jobs? What if we actually tried to do this?
I think at that point of time we were considering to do it part-time, but then we found out that it's actually not very feasible. It's not possible to hold a okay, not that it's not possible, but I think it's too hard to hold a part-time job in Singapore while trying to do a comic, because it's like holding two jobs at the same time. You can't think of like, oh, I'm just doing one half of a job and then the other half of a job, and then I just have like 4 hours from here, 4 hours. So that like it doesn't work that way in Singapore for comicing.
I'm sure there are people out there who can do it, like people with a lot of energy, but the two of us, like we put having a balanced and healthy lifestyle as a very, very high priority. So we thought, let's not put half our attention onto, you know, doing a part-time job that we don't really care about, and half our attention onto doing this thing that we really care about. In the end, it becomes, as Esther said, 2 full-time jobs. It doesn't fit our personalities.
It doesn't benefit either of your jobs, and it's not quite fair to either of your pursuits if you try and split your time that way also. Like, we prefer to do things a bit more like wholeheartedly.
And it's not easy to find a part-time job that even makes sense with that kind of restriction. Like if you have a very big other part-time commitment, this part-time job is going to be, I don't know, like working at McDonald's or something.
Yeah, you
which
have
is
to
not,
find one
which is not going
like
to.
that.
You're better off investing those hours into the full-time commitment if that's possible.
You have to have something like a retail job that lets you knock off at a very specific set of hours. But even so, I think like the pay is not.
Yeah,
correct.
correct.
It doesn't justify. It doesn't justify the time.
You work so hard and then you get like peanuts, and then after that you're so tired from like retail and people facing. You can't like want to do anything.
We are very lucky in the sense that before we did this, right, we already knew quite a few close friends who are doing, say, retail part-time and trying to pursue something like this full-time. But we look at that lifestyle and we go like, oh, that's it's a big struggle. It's a very, very big struggle.
It must have been a very, very scary change also for y'all to go from very, very stable like corporate work with Ubisoft. Were you also at Ubisoft still at that point?
At that point, I just graduated uni, and then after that, I went over to Ubisoft for about half a year. And then you were still full-time. She was still full-time.
And then y'all decided to make the jump after all that thorough planning that you all did.
Quite thorough planning, I have to say.
What did you all learn though from the process? Because quite interesting. Like you said, like very few people make that kind of jump. But what kind of preparations did y'all feel like you needed to do in order to safely make that transition? Because I'm sure a lot of people in Singapore want to do that.
Basically, you go like this, I have a big dream, but no matter what business idea it is, whether it's opening a cafe or like opening like an e-commerce platform or something, any business idea you have, right, you need to set yourself a timeline of how long should I allow myself to fail. So for example,
okay, interesting.
So I give myself 1 year. If I failed by 1 year, then I'm going back to my job. If I give myself 5 years, then if I failed by 5 years, I have to go back to my job. So it's not infinite, it's not indefinite, right? I'm not saying that you cannot try again, but your first try must be finite.
Pour in all your like 100% for that 1 year and then see what comes out after that.
Actually, for the two of us, we decided 1 year because we don't really have overheads for this business and all that. So we budgeted according to the worst case scenario. We do not make a single cent for this 1 year that we've taken this risk. So what this means is that we have to calculate our living expenses month by month. Let's say you need $2,000 to live, $3,000 to live. The amount of money that you need to save up to feel safe doing something like this is that times 12. And then that's our individual savings now. Yeah, plus whatever you're going to invest into your idea at the start. So for example, for us, we have no overheads, right? So it's a matter of like a small 5 digits. But for people with like bigger overheads, then they will have to add that on top of that 1 year. So that is the sum that we looked at. We really looked at it from a very objective point of view. We have this amount of money. let's go for this. We don't have this amount of money, let's not take this risk.
So having savings is very important, like having that buffer and the security. Because it's true, I think if day to day, right, if you don't see your success so immediately, you definitely need to have some cushioning so that you don't freak out during that uncertain period. I think it's very good advice for a lot of people, not just creatives, but people who want to start their own business, because it's really true, like there's a very sane and practical and objective way to figure out how to go about these plans. And yeah, I think it benefits everyone to like have that kind of realism. So it's not like, oh, you know, like
it's not being pessimistic.
It's not about being fatalistic
yeah.
or being a dreamer. Also, there's definitely a healthy and sane way to move forward. Yeah, and I'm very happy to get your technical advice about it. So it's what was it? You must calculate your expenses, you must times 12, and then you must have basically like that emergency cushion for yourself for 1 year of so-called failing.
I feel that it's very achievable if you live within your means. Not just during the year that you're doing this, but in maybe the 2-3 years prior as you're working a regular job. If you live within your means and you budget properly, you know that you're going to do this in 2 to 3 years. I dare say by the time you will have 1 year of savings for you to live like reasonably comfortably for a year as you're trying to do something like that.
And I think building on top of that, it's also like, what is this 1 year in the span of your career, the career that you're trying to build? So this gap that you're taking, whether you succeed or fail, it has to mean something in, like, for example, if you plan to be an artist even in 60 years, like, then this 1 month of you like trying something and presumably like failing, what does this mean? Like, are you going to continue this? Like, even after you fail for 1 year, you're going back out to take some kind of job, part-time, full-time? Are you going to come back later and just like resume this piece, or are you going to like make it better? How are you going to change the medium that it's on? Instead of comics, are you going to do like a visual novel based on that? Are you going to recycle the concept, or like make it more than that, or just like do a different concept but take from your previous learnings?
So like that 1 year, regardless of whether you kind of like you fail or succeed, there's something to kind of learn from that, and then from there you kind of figure out what's next, whether you continue the idea or you evolve the idea. So like now that you know you guys have been working on your webcomic and also your merch, you go to conventions in Singapore and overseas as well. So what's kind of like a day in your life now? Because it would have been very different coming from corporate.
Do you really wake up at 7 a.m.?
I wake up at 7 a.m. or 6 or something.
Yeah,
between 6 to 7.
I
respect
morning person.
I wake up at about 6 to 7. Then after that, I go to eat breakfast with my dad, because he's also someone who started his own business. He does prototyping, engineering. He's like going to retire already. Right. So I just go out with him, eat breakfast, and after that, sometimes I'll just ask him, like, how's your day going, music jamming and stuff like that. And then sometimes if I'm like at a roadblock in terms of like comicking and stuff like that, he will just be like, you know, your life is bigger than that. And then I think we'll just like talk about random philosophy, or basically for also it's good to hear from an entrepreneur like what is the business side of things when it comes to like doing comics and stuff like that. It's like it balances your perspective, or that your life is not just drawing as well, like your life is beyond that, and then drawing is a part of that process. I just talk with my dad, then after that I go back home, and then after that I feed my birds, water my plants, start drawing.
Start drawing around like afternoon.
No, I start drawing I think like about 9.
9
I start work about 9.
Oh, you have a very productive morning then. Like 7 to 9,
this
you're
sounds
like
like a
you go to
great
philosophical
morning.
questions, like slow
conversation,
day.
spend time with family.
You're like that girl, you know, like on TikTok, they're like, 7 a.m. morning shines, I open the curtains.
This
I think it's not always
I
like that.
drink like matcha, I drink tea, talk to my dad. So he's like a business advisor almost.
I mean, some days you're not doing so well. You feel like, like today I don't feel like doing certain things, but then he's just like, this is one day in the life of many days. Like, you plan for yourself, and then I think it's also that he just tells me to be hedonistic with like my life.
Oh, he told you to be hedonistic.
Like,
with
he's
your
just
life?
like, you want to sleep, you sleep lah. Yeah, you want to do this, just do. And then I think about, like, I just reconsider the options, and I'm just like, no, I can't do this to Ying Ting. Then after I go back to work.
wow.
I think the partnership helps. The partnership helps a lot.
You keep each other like
Interesting.
accountable.
Yeah.
So then you start drawing at around 10, and how long do you draw for the rest of your day?
I start work at about 9. Then after that, I end
9.
work at about 6:30 to do chores and cleaning and stuff like that. Yeah. Or like I also get lunch break in between.
It's basically
Then
about
full-time work is
9 to 6
full-time
a
job.
9 to
Yeah.
6 comic like slash
And then-
drawing.
Yeah. Then after that, I go I go and have dinner or skip dinner and then go on a walk with my mom, and then after that just come back, continue drawing or like read some fics or something like that. Read.
Of course, you
Or
must.
watch
A regular diet of fics is very important.
Or I mean, as in watch some, I don't know, true crime, mountaineering videos, because I don't dare to do that myself. Then after that, sleep. I sleep on time because it's important to take care of the two of your straight.
Wow, amazing.
Very, very
wholesome
healthy lifestyle. Very good. I admire this very much.
This is like what I aspire to in my life. It's like you're like a more highly evolved human being. I cannot wake up in the morning. My routine, I don't have a routine. I always work at night after I finish.
But they say night owls are smarter, right? I think they say like, I don't know, you think with like your mind
regularity.
Yeah, I don't know, like it's just a thing that
habit.
Yeah.
I feel like people have this misconception that artists are like, oh, you know, people like you sleep whenever you want, you're totally free, you're creative, you live your own rules. But I feel like a lot of comic artists that we meet, they're actually very disciplined. Yeah, and like they really get the hours in. You know, comic is not the kind of art where you can be like, oh, I'm inspired now, and then I'll, you know, find a sculpture of a toilet bowl or something. You know, like it's very different from like conceptual stuff. Like you really need to put in hours. Yeah, so I have a lot of respect for that.
Because you need to carry this comic for so many years and so many chapters for most people, right? And then not every chapter is straightforward. Some of them are very dry, very technical. Some of them require 3D modeling. Some of them require like a lot of, you know, all these plot strings and all that. So we definitely had a burst of inspiration maybe for the first 3 months of planning this before we even started to draw this. And then once we actually work on it, right, start to publish a chapter, start to actually color, line, whatever, this is discipline. This is 100% discipline.
So comic making basically is, you gotta be a bit of like a jack of all trades, and then you have that discipline as well, right? But we just talked about Tiny's a day in a life. So what about like yours?
For me, I wake up a little bit later, like around 9. If we have a call, then 8 lah. But if we don't have a call, 9 lah.
Also, you have your morning meetings at like 8.
Yeah. Sometimes, okay. I wake up around 9, and then I will do my chores like cooking, whatever, because I cook for the family and all that. So I will do that first, and then I will start work probably in the afternoon. So early afternoon, say 1 p.m. And then I will work until dinner time, and then I will cook dinner for my family. And then I will work at night from like maybe 8-9-ish to maybe about 2 a.m. or something. 1 to 2 a.m. It depends on how busy we are. Like if we're very busy, I will spend the time working. If we are not, I will just spend the time gaming or like reading things or something like that. We actually work quite differently because Tiny works like regular hours. Like a regular person. I work slightly.
You're not irregular. That's what you are going to say.
No. I work actually slightly shorter hours. I think Tiny works maybe about 8 to 9 hours a day. I work maybe about 5 to 6 hours a day. But I will work every single day is the same. So weekends are the same as well.
So you work on weekends
you take weekends off? Or weekends work weekends?
It depends. I try to leave weekends like a bit flexible. So if my family needs me, or if I'm meeting friends and stuff like that, then my weekends are free, because I also have Yangqing class on Sunday.
It doesn't matter. A lot of our work can be segregated. So we don't have to be in the same room working on the same thing at the same hours all the time.
Do you guys work together, like in person?
Sometimes. It depends on the nature of the work. Yeah.
Oh, nature of the work, kind of like meaning
story writing.
Like
script description. Yes.
Or prototyping something. Like for example, creating something like this, how it will look like. Sometimes we do.
So you definitely had to come together to start coming up with the concept for To Hell With You. How did that start?
That was fun.
Like, what made you decide to, come up with this comic?
We were like, okay, what kind of genres do we like that overlap? So for example, we both like things like dystopian fiction. We like Orient.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yes. And then what kind of archetypes of 2D men that we like?
Of course. It's got to be the bishonens, the pretty boys.
We are trying to optimize that, how to say, the ratio of like male to female, and then what would suit our own, like what would we personally like to read. And let's say we finish the comics in like 5 years, and then after that 2 years later, if we reread this, like, is this something that we want to read? So it has to be something that we ourselves want to consume.
Has longevity. It's more of the tame that is very popular now in China, like TGCF and like Motao. A lot of these books when they start, they are very, very NSFW, and then they get adapted, and then they because of censorship or whatever, then they become like not. So how did from there, or you have these inspirations, basically kind of like running around, and then you guys settled on this concept. So how did that happen?
I think Tiny is more of the creative drive. I'm more of like the, okay, can we put this into the market kind of person.
Oh, you're the planner.
Yeah. So for me, it was like, okay, we both like Dame. To me, Dame sells. Everybody likes it.
Yes, it is very popular right now.
Yeah, and people want more content, and there's like, there's like a gap of content. There's so much demand, very little supply. We looked at all the very popular Dame works out there, and then we try to identify what is one premise that is still oriental, that still involves like, Chinese ikemen and all that, but that hasn't been explored. What is this setting that hasn't really been explored? So we have Chinese Heaven in Teguan Sifu, we have Cultivation World in a lot of books.
Like very deity, like the better side, like the good side. That kind of thing.
But we don't have Hell. We have like Dante's Inferno in English literature, but we don't really have the equivalent of this in Chinese works, as far as I know, or it's not very well documented. So it was like a niche that we could exploit in a way.
That's good. It's true. You gotta find your niche.
I mean, like Lucifer is very, very popular. I mean, what do you call it? The Hell IP or the Hell
it's
franchise.
Free as copyright free. It's just like, okay, we're gonna adapt Hell. How are we gonna come up with ideas, new ideas around that?
Yeah, and the mythology around Chinese Hell is great. It's so interesting. Like the river where you drink the tea and then you forget everything, like purgatory, then all the different demons and stuff. There's a lot of stuff to go into.
I mean, if you go to Haw Par Villa, there's stuff beyond your imagination. Like I can never imagine any of those like tortures or anything up on my own. I think it's like you go in there and then it's like, wow, treasure trove of.
So Haw Par Villa is like a very, very important reference point for your webcomic.
So you go to Haw Par Villa and you look at there are like 10 lots of judgment, right? Doesn't that just remind you of like arcs in shonen anime? It has so much potential for
you go through
good story with every arc.
Like this character grows.
Where did they come from? How did they become Hell Lords and all that?
What I'm curious also about is like, because Chinese Hell, there's so many ways that we've kind of referred to it. Like kind of like how, people interpret almost like Hell in the Western. In Chinese mythology, there's like the 10 Courts of Hell, which is what y'all went with, which is what Haw Par Villa, is designed around. And then there's like the 18 layers of hell. Like it's referred to in different ways, like Zhouyu, Huangquan, all this. So why did y'all decide like, I want to do 10 Courts of Hell and then I want to create these main characters like that?
I really think it's because of the ease of the narrative arc. So you look at it in terms of structure of the story. If it's 18 levels of hell, do we have enough time to explore all 18 levels in 18 different arcs? But if there's like 10 Courts of Hell, it implies 10 judges, 10 full story arcs. It's like a round number that everybody can remember easily. And 10 main characters, we feel it's just the right number of like, important characters for people to focus on.
Not too many.
Develop an attachment with. Like you look at like Kimetsu no Yaiba or this, they all have like 10 or 12, or like the Akatsuki from Naruto.
There's always like a round number to it, or like the perfect number, so that people don't fall off in terms of interest.
I mean, this is a great, format or like episodic kind of way to see your story as well. So you guys, one long continuous story is actually very hard to do. It's nice to have all these different episodes to let the characters play out.
You also have your pre-established kind of like plot points for yourself that you don't have to worry too hard about, because you know that, okay, I kind of got to go through each and every one. And I do kind of see that, because now that you're saying it, I'm seeing that through your comic right now, because he is kind of traveling. Like your main character who's Han Shilei, he's traveling through all these different courts of hell, and you get to experience it one by one and go through that. And I thought that was a very, very smart thing that y'all did with the characters. But among these 10, right, and also of course including your main characters as well, who's your favorite?
Actually, my favorite character is the first lord you ever meet, the judge of the first court, the one that decides which court you go to, is this glasses guy who is a doctor. His name is Liu Ming.
Liu Ming,
Yes, it's just the character archetype. Yes, it's this one. this is the first guy that you meet. No spoilers, but he sort of decides your fate based on how you live your life, and everybody who has ever died has to pass through his court, and where he will weigh your sins, your karma.
Liu Ming's your favorite character. Then what about you?
Oh, I like Chu Feng. I think it's just it's also an archetypal thing. I think because like when I watch media, I think I'm just drawn to characters who are a little bit bratty, like white hair bratty,
The white
correct?
hair, bratty
White
Or red
hair,
hair, yeah.
bratty.
You know, like when you watch an anime and then there's like the character with the red hair, the character with the black hair, and then they're
Yes.
usually associated with like certain personality
Yes.
traits.
Yeah.
And then it's just that these traits are more commonly found in characters with white hair, red hair, or black hair, something like
Wow.
that.
Yeah,
I've
they,
never,
they have a
I've
rebellious
never seen-
attitude.
Yeah, no filter.
Yeah.
I think red
yeah.
hair, yes, but I didn't. What is the white hair personality trait?
Okay,
I've
you have
not-
some, I think. You have
There
some
are two
archetypes.
kinds, I
yeah. I think in some you have the intelligent genius, and then sometimes they're a little bit like scheming and things like that. And then you also have the fragile emo boy.
Which trait? Oh,
He's the
does
brat
this
lah.
character
He's the
have?
brat. Yeah.
the
He's
bratty,
bratty.
bratty. Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
He carries a fan around.
Yeah.
Yes.
the
Fabulous.
Got my fan,
bratty.
fabulous. Then he's like,
She calls him chicken.
yeah, then I think his
KFC.
robe was like falling off his shoulder. Then it's like, wow, a bit sultry. But I think very interesting is that like you have Chu Feng who's white haired, and then the main character Shilei actually also is white haired, and I feel like they're quite different.
Yeah, they're different.
So you can almost see like how even though they are both white hair archetypes, there are white hair archetypes in different ways. Like later on in the story, there's some mysterious backstory that like Shilei seems to be involved with, and like what I felt was his personality was very, very different in this mysterious backstory. So you can almost see like the way that I thought you all handled the archetypes very differently. It's quite interesting.
Actually, maybe the archetypes that you're describing is two sides of the same person. It's like there's the mischievous side, and then there's the fragile emo, like want to die, almost going
Best
to
in
die.
both.
As in, they're basically the same.
Both.
It's the same person, but a different stage of the story.
Yeah. This is where character
Interesting.
development comes in. So
Yes.
maybe they start off like with a front, and then after that, during the character development, you see them like unravel or they change in a certain way that is like irreparable.
Yeah.
And then you
Oh.
see them either find their happiness or find their end in some other way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's like a
Yes.
good resolution to their story arc lah, or their story or the story.
Then if you really like this kind of bratty characters, you're saying you like red hair characters. Like, were you like a fan of like, I don't know, Diluc, Genshin or something, red hair or no?
I like Diluc.
Oh, you don't? You don't?
I mean, I like Diluc.
You like others. Like, they were
I like
they're
Xiao.
brattier characters.
Yeah.
Oh, Xiao's very
I like
bratty.
Xiao. I have no idea why I like Xiao, but I like Xiao. I think it's just it could be a meta thing, or it could be because I like Tan Heng as well from Honkai. So I don't know how like they just like program like this.
Bratty.
Yeah,
It's the
it's a
bratty
template,
DNA
it's a
that's
template,
injected
yeah.
in there, and then you're
Yeah.
like,
I didn't know
yes.
I like this, and then they're like, okay, maybe you will like this,
Mhm.
and then I like Xiao, and then after that now I also like Tan Heng.
I find that maybe love is not blind for me because I have a specific look when it comes to
Really?
like to all these pretty
Oh,
boys.
is
I
it?
do.
Oh.
Which character?
What is
Okay,
your
so
type?
one of
is
your
your-
characters is one of your
Yeah.
characters in your book. So there's
what?
this. It's kind of like I think we don't really see that side of him much yet. I'm very excited to see him. Is it a spoiler?
No, you can say
Okay,
it. Yeah, you
I
can
say
say
it, I
it.
say it.
Yeah, because
So-
the webtoon is already published until a
Tec-
certain
Technically,
yeah.
so
yeah,
a bit spoiler alert. Y'all go and read first
Yeah, yeah,
if you
yeah,
don't want to
yeah.
see. But basically, towards the later part of the book, we see that his mysterious backstory. You want to guess? You want to guess? What?
Yeah, it's one of these guys, right? There's like I mean the different
Yeah, all
lords.
the lots are on that
Maybe I
page.
can
Yeah, there's
show
one
you
page
this.
with all the different
Yeah,
lords.
it's
on
in the
it.
middle of
Okay,
the
there
book.
are female lords also.
They're female
they're
lords
female
as
lords as
well.
well.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not all.
Yeah, in
It's
actual-
until which chapter?
Chapter 14, I
14.
believe.
14.
Do you
no,
want
13,
to see
yeah.
this page?
Oh, okay. Then that hasn't come up yet. But basically,
I think it's still quite early, right? From where you have probably like scoured up to.
no, I read up to 28. I finished the whole thing. But
Wency always does very good research.
okay, so it's got something to do with it's the ninth court, I think. the guy,
This
one.
Changzhe. So
He's on the cover.
Changzhe, he at some point, I think he seems to have entered the mortal world. My interpretation is that he went to the mortal world, and then he had like a ponytail. And then I was like,
Yeah, the flashback. Yeah, I know.
if it's a dark haired character with a ponytail, I love him because basically if you look through all the MXTX, all the IPs, I like if it's
Yeah.
dark hair and you have it in
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah,
you're
yeah,
righteous, good boy,
yeah,
slightly like
Emotionally constipated.
emotionally constipated.
Yes,
Stoic, like
depressed.
Yes, he's like depressed, stoic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like I love Wei Wuxian. He's kind of bratty though.
Yeah.
So that kind of character. So when I saw like, oh, this mysterious backstory. This character, he got ponytail. I love him. Yeah, I also love the dark. I also like the darker characters. So
I did not see the
Very excited
ponytail
to-
in this book yet.
Not yet.
But
Not
I'm
yet.
excited.
not
I'm
yet,
excited
not
to
yet.
see it.
Technically, Shirley also got ponytail, so I did like it also. White hair is a like I constantly like when I make new characters or something like white hair.
Oh, I would like to see them.
So how do y'all break up this workload then? Because it's quite a bit of work to be working on this webcomic. And then y'all also do conventions and all that. So how's that production process like for you?
To help with you for the comic, we do the brainstorming of the overall plot points together. We do the writing of the script together. When it goes on to the storyboard, I do the storyboard. She does the line art, and then after I do the color. She does the formatting and the stitching and editing, color edits, because I'm not that good at color, so I need to borrow her fantastic eye for checking like color and mood and stuff like that. And then after that, she will do the posting for comic.
This is a very good workflow. Yeah. So you guys really like cover different things, like you guys divide all the tasks.
Yeah, and it's ongoing. So while one chapter is still in production, the next chapter is already at the early stages of production. So we constantly have quite a few chapters, maybe 2 or 3 in the pipeline at the same time.
Oh, that's really good. Then you guys can like really schedule it and so that it comes out quite regularly.
Yeah, we can
And
stagger
you
the
don't worry
process.
about it
Yeah.
like that much. For this webcomic as well, when I was like reading, I did say I read through the whole thing. I read the comments as well because there was like this guy, like there was this person. Basically, you gave this person a shout out. It was called I don't know how to pronounce this user.
Holmes?
So in my
Holmes,
Holmes is Holmes.
I think we call them
reads,
Holmes.
provide a lot of helpful cultural context to whatever was happening in that chapter. So like, if you introduce all the 10 lots of the chords, right? This person will go and I'm going to analyze every single name and all the cultural context that comes with every single name. And it's very, very interesting. But I was wondering, like, because this person is so dedicated, was it like a personal friend or like an online fan just really wants to do this?
We don't know them, but they are like a local Singaporean.
Right.
Who comes to meet us during conventions. I actually don't know who they are because we meet a lot of people during conventions, so I don't recognize their face. But we chat with them sometimes, and they're very interested in local culture, Chinese culture, the Southeast Asian twist on Chinese culture. And they read a lot of books, it's not just Tamil, but a lot of other books that are inspired by Chinese culture. So it's just kind of their passion to explain it to the other readers, because our webcomic is published in English. And most of our followers from our other social media platforms are from the US, UK, Europe, Australia. So 90% of them, 99% of them don't speak Chinese at all. Chinese hell is such a unexplored area. Like they might know things about other parts of Chinese culture, but probably not Chinese hell. So everybody goes in with fascination, but with a lot of confusion as well. So some of our readers will step up to explain some of the context, the cultural
The
context.
motives, yeah.
Yeah, the motives. Like even those small little details, like a character applying makeup onto their face using a sheet of paper. Everybody's like,
I
why do you
love
use a sheet of
that.
paper?
Yeah.
Like, it's not
And
well known in
it's-
Western culture.
I think it's something
like one
that
of
kind
the-
of comes quite naturally to us, because if we consume like for example Chinese cultivation dramas and stuff like that, it's just like, oh, she's just applying it like that. It's just something that's programmed into our brain as natural, but actually to people, for example Chinese living overseas, it's actually something that's not.
They're just
Programmed
like, why,
inside.
why
They're
is
just like,
she
why?
kissing a piece of paper?
Yeah.
But actually
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
lipstick. She wets it and then it's rouge for the lips.
Yeah.
So I thought that was like a very nice like cultural touch that like y'all put it. It was so simple that it's like a, if you miss it, you miss it. So it's very nice to have these cultural tidbits that this reader provides, and then y'all also at the end of each chapter provide that as well. So I thought that was really cool. So what kind of lessons have you learned now that you've been working on this for almost 2 years basically? Is there like a mistake that you would advise others from making?
If you want to make technical mistakes, just make all your technical mistakes and make them fast. Just go for it. Just fail.
Like technical
And
mistakes meaning
For example, drawing
drawing,
mistakes.
colouring,
Just
printing
make them.
wrongly,
Yeah.
like, stuff like
I
that.
think in the beginning when I first started doing a lot of concept and things like that, then after I sent over to Keyade, Keyade was very kind. I think you just let a lot of things like just like, okay, shut one eye and then just like start under. But then I think over time, because we started working more with each other, and then you are more, how to say, you got more comfortable with pointing out things that actually really don't work. And then you provided very valuable feedback, and then our partnership just got better from that because she was being more honest with the feedback. I think it's also something that is actually very difficult to work through, because if you're working with someone And then if they give you very direct feedback, sometimes it's actually very hard to take the direct feedback.
It's like your pride will like,
So-
take a hit.
Yeah, so it's actually important that you set up a bit of a feedback system with the person that you're working with. Like, how do you want to take your feedback? So I told her straight, like, I want a shit sandwich. So you tell me something nice about what I'm doing, and then you give me the shit in the middle, and then after that you end off with the nice thing. This is so that I can take it better.
Yeah, this is gold advice, by the way. Very practical in many aspects of everyone's life.
I think that's how
Always
like
a
people
shit
should
sandwich.
approach it. This kind of
I
like,
think it depends. It depends on what sort of advice you like to take. If you are
true.
someone with a tougher heart, then okay, but I have a porcelain heart, so I need like I need a shit sandwich lah, or at least like time to warm up to the more critical feedback.
That's great. Yeah.
Actually, Tiny is very tough lah. Like the reason for the feedback is really because we have completely different strengths. And for this comic, you'll be surprised. We actually decided to pick the area that was not our strength to work on. Tiny's strength is line art, but I'm the one doing the line art.
Yeah.
And my strength is coloring, but Tiny is the one doing the coloring. We deliberately swapped it so that we could become more holistic artists ourselves. And so we have a lot of opportunities to give each other shortcuts actually. So it's less of criticizing you, hey, you did not do this well. It's more of like, hey, I see you doing this. I have done this for 2 years and it didn't work. So this is the trick that I learned. So maybe you can try this out. Yeah. That's how we actually both improved very rapidly after working this way.
wow. So like one of your main advice is like kind of just dive right in regardless of the mistakes, just make it anyway, and then like find kind of like that mutual support system, feedback from each other as you work on it.
That would be the technical side.
That's the
But
technical side.
in terms of like on the mental side, I would think that for us, the friendship is the baseline. So we have a business, but the business exists in isolation to our friendship. So if anything, right, we want to preserve that friendship over that we want to keep that business going.
The
Or like
friendship
the
is more
comic
important than
going.
the business. So our respect for each other and our priority for good communication is higher than making money. It's higher than surviving and all this. Because right, I think like Tiny told me yesterday when we were discussing how to answer this question, your business may fail because right now you may not have the right skills to let it succeed. This is somewhat slightly out of your control because it depends on external competition. But as long as you and your friends still have a very good connection and you guys still work very well together, you still trust each other, you can gain those skills at any point in your life and try again.
Yeah,
Because
that's
it's so
true.
difficult to find a good business partner to do like a very ambitious project with you. And so that connection with people will always be more important than the quality of the work, the survival of the business.
I think comics is very hard to work on alone sometimes, and so maybe you need someone to help you and to work together with you. So this is like really good advice for people like looking for future partnerships when it comes to collaboration and creative collaboration.
Negotiate what's your baseline.
Negotiate your baselines, like understanding also your needs, and then it's not also about like drawing the perfect thing, and it's really about like the learning process. Now that you guys have this book coming out, I know you're launching this quite soon. I think this episode will probably come out after the launch date.
Yeah.
So your launch date is gonna be
15 March. Yes.
Yeah, so it'll probably be in stores by the time this episode will be out, so it's on your web store, right?
Yes,
And
yeah.
we'll probably have the link down in the description if you guys want to actually have the nice physical book. As I know y'all also worked really hard converting the webcomic format
it
into
was
a
all
book format.
tiny.
It was all you were doing all the layout and stuff.
It
But I also got quite
almost all
a bit
tiny.
of feedback, and I needed her
Yeah.
eye because like if you're doing it formatting alone and everything, then it's very difficult to see whether the book even makes sense.
Yeah.
So definitely you need like some kind of beta or some kind of accelerator to help you like pick up all those mistakes. and stuff.
Proofreading and all
Yeah,
that.
it's very important.
It's true.
And she did a lot of the logistics and stuff like that, hard carrying, like like all this like go for you have to find a vendor, you have to find the right
yeah.
price.
Yeah, I wanted to say this is a very pretty, it's a really pretty
Yes,
book cover.
the
I don't
gold
know if
foil
people can
is
see
gorgeous.
The
see.
shiny, but it's nice, and the book is very nicely formatted. I mean, we've seen before like webcomics where people they kind of just like copy and paste it and then print it out like quite quickly, but this doesn't feel that way. It reads very well, very clearly.
I read that.
Yeah, like the bleed, the even the what
gutter?
do we call it? The gutter? Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
properly done and all that. So it's great.
Yeah,
Very
it's really
beautiful,
great
beautiful
production,
book.
like really high quality. So make sure
thank
you
you.
check it out.
It's like our dream is to get it into bookshops one day. So we wanted to design something that would be noticeable from the side, from the front, from the back. So that's why we blinged it up.
That's
Good thinking. So important.
Yeah. I think my first reaction to this was like, wow, I'm like, was this too much? It's like, you know,
No,
like the
book
gangster
covers
wearing a
is
gold ring.
almost it's never too much. Like having it shiny and like looking good. To be realistic, you know the mantra of people say like don't judge a book by its cover. I would say it's like not true. Nowadays people judge books by its cover more than ever because
people totally do.
because we are spending money and we want to like feel like our money.
It's
paying our
important,
money.
the attention that people have on your book. If for a split second, then what do you want to show them? Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, okay, a pretty boy, magic, fantasy, oh, very interesting, and then also, and then like really cool world building. So we kind of can really get that from like your book design. Where are you guys taking this book to, like upcoming events this year or anything like that? Like where can people expect you?
We will be at Dojima and Doki Doki Anime Market next, but we are actually in talks with Haw Villa to have this in their shop as well. Yeah, we're in the middle of like talking to them about it. Not sure about that. Just, you know, that's a TBD. But yeah, we're discussing that.
I just cackled when I see the email. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
This is like a milestone that I never thought that we might
So
even
y'all
can
reached
even
out to
imagine.
them, or Haw Villa saw that y'all were working on this and knew about it already?
We reached out to them.
You reached out to
Yeah,
them.
we reached out to them. Our dream is to get it into bookshops one day. So we are actually actively looking for a distributor.
I want to kind of hear from y'all, like kind of one final advice for you guys as well who are watching. Like what's one thing aspiring creators should do or know if they want to start creating their own webcomic today?
Webcomics are daunting. They are like a multidisciplinary skill set. So you need to know how to write, how to draw, how to format, how to do SFX, like things you don't even think about. How to market yourself, how to even write authors' comments, 3D modeling, I don't know whether I mentioned that before.
Oh yeah.
Perspective. You're almost like a film director. So you need to be jack of all trades. So I can see why people are so daunted. Even if they're only doing it for fun, it is still like a wow, do I really have that time and commitment to try out something so big? But it is very similar to starting a YouTube channel. You pick up things along the way. So what you envision your webcomic to look like, no matter which level of artistic skill you're at, what you think it will look like will be nicer than what it actually looks like. But nobody reading your comic knows what you think it should look like. So what they get right and they think is good, then you're good. That's it.
That's true.
Yeah.
You're your own harshest critic. A lot of the time.
Yeah. So every time people are choked at the starting point because they go, I cannot create something that is like what I envision.
Yeah,
But
it can't meet my expectations, and then they don't want to start because it almost feels like
Correct. They can't take the first step
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
door. Yeah.
But they don't know that nobody can see what they envision. For all they know, this is exactly what you envision, and you had the skills to pull it off. And of course, you will get better and better and better. I've seen so many webcomic artists do like the first 10 chapters, and a year passes, and then they go, you know what? I'm so much better at drawing. I'm going to restart. And then the second attempt takes off really, really, really well.
Yeah.
But you have to make that first attempt. It's not something that requires a lot of overheads, a lot of collaborative power. You just need to set aside some time for it. And then once you get some sort of feedback from the reader base, there will definitely be one or two people, at least at the start. Definitely be a small community that will think that you're very, very fantastic. They will think that your work is really inspiring. They will really, really enjoy. They will follow up with every update. There will be some people like that at the start for sure, no matter at what level you are. These people will give you the motivation to actually become, eventually, like if you keep at it, one of the top webcomic artists on the platform.
You have to try it to know whether you are in love with the idea of having a comic or in love with the process of making the comic.
Oh, this reminds me of like something one of my art teachers said to me when I was in uni, which was that you have to figure out if you only just want to consume it or you really want to make it and you want to battle through that. Yeah. And it's like a really important distinction to have because you figure out whether or not you're willing to put in the time and also the blood, sweat and tears to do it. And I think like that kind of distinction of like, okay, do I just want a comic or do I really want to do a comic? I think that's a great tip that probably anybody who wants to make comics that you have to figure out. A lot of people think, oh, I want to write a book. I think I've talked to like my dad himself, like, I want to write a book. I'm going to write a book now. ChatGPT. Because of ChatGPT, I want to write a book. And then I'm like, okay. And a lot of people come tell you that they want to write a book, and not many people
Actually write a book.
Yeah, everyone likes the idea of having a book, having published a book, being published, or being a writer.
Yes.
But actually liking the process of writing is different. Yeah.
It's a very lonely process sometimes. I can say this, even when we work in a collaboration, when it gets down to actually doing the nitty-gritty, it's a very lonely process. You need to be somebody who's comfortable with yourself. Quiet time with yourself to actually pull this off.
The self-awareness that comes with like, okay, your self-criticism or being able to move past that. I think what y'all have shared today is like really, really valuable advice for anybody who's watching. And we're very, very happy that, you know, you guys were able to come down and talk to us about your experience working on webcomics and being an independent comic artist. As thanks for you guys coming down here today, we have a very special surprise for you.
Thank you so much. Oh, this is so cute.
Yeah, that's so nice.
It's printed by Clement.
Oh,
he came
Thank
here
you.
to not only we have a
Thank you
friend
guys as
of Keyade and
Yeah.
Tiny behind the camera.
Yes, yes.
Shout out to
I'm gonna shout out to Clement.
Shout out to Clement, who's actually been helping us print all our marks.
Yeah.
I think like Clement deserves a shout out for this
Yeah,
as well. Like
truly though.
Nadra has been drawing these, but Clement has been helping us.
Yeah, we have not given him any credit for it
It's
so
true.
far.
No, we want to give Clement credit also because as part of like our close friend group, right? Clement has kept us going. It's like such a difficult journey. Okay, I would say nobody in Singapore does this. Very few people in Singapore do this. But because our friend group has people like Clement, right, we don't feel like such a weirdo.
Like you're
Then
not
we can
alone in
actually
this.
like we can actually keep it
you're
together
not
for long
weird.
enough to
Please don't feel
Okay,
weird.
we will give a shout out also to
Yeah.
Clement's YouTube channel
Yes,
down below.
yes.
I know Clement
Go
said
watch
don't
Clement's
shout out my
YouTube.
channel, but I'm gonna do it. Okay, so
Yeah.
you go down the link in the
Yeah.
description. You'll be below. Thank you again for you guys coming down here
Thanks
today.
for having us.
Yeah,
thank you
so
for having us.
I gotta say also that this episode was very lovingly sponsored by the WIP program. So without them, we wouldn't be having you guys down here today.
Yay, thank you,
Yay.
Comic Con.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, unfortunately, I have to end on some bad news.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh.
so the bad news is this is the last episode for this season. We are going on a little bit of a hiatus.
This is
but-
great news. It's not
Okay,
bad
it's
news.
rest for us. It's
news?
rest for us, but
Yeah.
we do hope to come back. So if you guys want to see more of this, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe down below. If you want more, if you want to follow more news about the podcast or about local comics news, you can also check out our Instagram or join our Discord community channel. Links, as always, down below. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to Red Dot Comics then, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.